Thank you for the info so far and also introductions to my own presentation. Indeed, it's going to be on the one-stop shop of Riga, which is a bit of an odd one out in the Riveter project as it already existed beforehand. But anyway, a bit of info on Riga in general and the reason for the one-stop shop being so important, I would say, and possibly also a key to its success, is that there really is a large need just out of the climate, for example. Indeed, it's fairly cold here, right? And so housing renovation is very important, as well as due to the Soviet occupation, as perhaps you know. So a lot of people live in these typical multi-apartment buildings, which were built when heating was or the heat itself was not a product per se, but rather a result of production, and so it wasn't really um, it was on no one's mind, let's say, to conserve it, and so really all of these buildings are quite inefficient, and a lot of people live in them, so the problems are quite similar, and so on. Yeah, as well as the property structure is probably pretty different. Like, 85% of inhabitants, or sorry, 94% even, own their apartment in these multi-apartment buildings. So since they have a lot of deciding power, there needs to be a lot of work with them also to convince them to renovate, and so on. And as well, also there's a large chance that people do suffer from energy poverty, and so on. Yet still, Riga has a goal to be carbon neutral by 2030. So let's see how that pans out, as it were. Anyhow, yeah, I mentioned a bit of some of the challenges which this context creates, but really the inhabitants are quite skeptical about energy efficiency renovation in general, and there's quite a lot of myths still around, since it wasn't on the political agenda, neither back in Soviet times, neither in Riga, really in the previous administrations, I wouldn't say. Civil society is quite too low. You see this in all sorts of statistics in Latvia in general, and probably this is due to Soviet heritage. And this applies to housing also, where 2/3 is still managed by the municipal housing management company, even though this was initially brought up to be a temporary solution, but here we are 30 odd years later, and it's still the same case. And pretty much this is due to the inhabitants not being active enough to try and change something, or else due to them not being informed enough about the possibilities of doing this change. And so 51% or a simple majority, in fact, must agree when they want to either change this housing management company or else do any larger repairs and so on. And so they have a lot of swaying power and thus must be convinced if anything should be done. Additionally, of course, costs are quite high, especially as of late. And then the problem is that people see this large number and oftentimes don't see the bigger picture. For example, emergency repairs. Of course, if you have a hole in a roof or your house starts to collapse, you have to do something in that instant, as opposed to if you were to renovate it previously. But then, it's harder to take these external costs into account when discussing this large bill for renovation. So there also this informative work is very important. Still, yet of course, the simple payback time can be up to 40 years without subsidy and so on. So it really is still quite expensive. Also because the heating tariff is quite low still, even now. And then, even though this payback time could be decreased with subsidies, getting these subsidies is fairly complex, and people are, as I said, skeptical of all things government oftentimes, and especially bureaucracy, and unfortunately, for good reason, because indeed these subsidy schemes are often quite bureaucratic, especially these which give a larger amount of funds, since you have to explain to the EU how you spend them. And hopefully you noticed that for a lot of these problems, the solution is information, is education, and so we figured also, and thus a one-stop shop really is solution. Um, so for us, yeah, indeed, it is a free of charge service since we're a municipal agency, and then in this sort is like public service. Indeed, I mean, we provide information on plenty of topics, energy efficiency chief among them, but also, yeah, other themes that are touched upon this. Yeah, so we were not in operation since 2022, but then, yeah, the physical OSS opened on April of 2023. Renove.lv, I think it was May of 2023, May or thereabouts, anyhow. And so we provide about 500 consultations yearly. So this is including our digital consultations, our phone calls, our in-person meetings, and so on. Yeah. Yeah, that's the team. You saw the picture of the bus beforehand as well. And the team, of course, is really the most important part of it, since we strive to have a good quality of service, of course. And to be fair, this is also not always easy, especially with expansion. I'll touch upon this more, but really, I think that if nothing else, then the main takeaway from my presentation is that really what makes the service are the people. So you must take care of them. And as for what we provide, yeah, really the main bread and butter, as it were, is this general informative support, because mostly the problem is lack of information still, I would say, at a large scale. Like before you can start solving other fundamental problems, anyhow, the people have to be informed, and it is still not the case that people have this solid baseline level of information. So there is a lot to be doing in this, yeah, general informative support. But then also, yeah, we provide, let's say, document templates so that people don't have to figure it out for themselves. We participate in the house owner meetings. I would say still this is general informative support as well, likewise for events. And to get into something more interesting, perhaps we do serve as a bit of a neutral party between this municipal housing management company and inhabitants, where sometimes the relationship is not that well defined. So it helps to have this third party. Yeah, these days we do provide financial support also for technical documentation. We also provide thermographic analysis. This, I would say again, though, is this informative support. And then hopefully, yeah, a new service is these excursions or trips to renovated houses to let people to see them and so on, so that it's not something distant. Since in some neighborhoods you have few and far between renovated houses, so it's nice that they get to see them. And also project management is also in progress. Still, we notice a market deficiency where there aren't enough project management companies. So this is though this is something I've been saying for a year. It's not been going that fast, but still, it's something that we would like to move in. Since perhaps if you know of this the typology, let's say, or these models of one-stop shops. There's, let's say, four models, and what I would also recommend for anyone starting up a one-stop shop is really to start at the first level, so this facilitation model, which is really this informative support, and this is what we did. But currently, yeah, I think I would say moving further on. Probably now we're about 1.5, let's say, and so on. obviously any model is not complete, like since we also provide this financing scheme for this technical documentation, it kind of falls outside.
Sorry, it's just me, or there's a problem for everybody?
Yeah, it's a problem, I think, for everyone.
Yes.
I cannot listen to Valters anymore.
Yeah.
No, yes.
Okay.
He's out.
Okay. We see if he can within the moment. I will try to contact, or if somebody can also try to contact him within, I don't know, WhatsApp or something like this. So let's see if he appears in a moment. If not, then we will proceed to the question and answer session. So we see for 1 more minute if he can solve his issue. And if not, we can just maybe see if he's going to connect, and then we can do the question and answer already about the presentations before, and then if he connects, then we move back to his presentation. What do you think?
All right.
All right.
Okay. No, he's back. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we lost you here between 1.5 and 2, somewhere there. Okay.
All right. Thanks for the operative information. All right. I guess I'll try to be briefer then. Let me put it back on. Anyhow, yeah. Start from the bottom and then move on. I would say is my advice for anyone starting out, and do it as an iterative process. All right. Moving on. Hopefully you can hear and see me now.
We can see.
All right.
Here.
Yeah, we do have a physical location, but what we found out eventually also was that really this website and these digital consultations work best, since you can just have a larger volume of them with less problems in logistics. And what's also quite important, and something that we've gotten through the Renovatory project and are very happy about, is indeed this snappy, simple website, renove.lv, with this main pipeline in the top right corner. You can see pieteikties bezmaksas konsultācijas, so apply for a free consultation. And this is the main pipeline that we get for clients. And I also would recommend everyone to define kind of this default way, so that you can optimize this one pipeline at first. And for us, it is these digital consultations where we use Calendly plugin, where it's fairly simple for the clients to apply, and it's fairly automatic. So we get a large volume of consultations. It's also not hard for us or for the client. Anyhow, yeah, the automatization is key if you want to think about scaling up. And thus also, I would say the digital solutions are also the path. Here's a little graph about the number of consultations per month. These are just these digital consultations through this application form, so excluding phone calls and meetings and place and so on. And so what you can see is that it does vary quite a lot month to month, depending on either, as Linda mentioned, on this informative campaign that we've had, or else on some legislation which sometimes pushes people our way, and so on. So it does vary a lot, which is important to take into account when thinking about scaling up and so on, and the team composition, in fact. yeah, we do provide 4 types of consultations, actually 5 now. One of them is for a special event. Anyhow, we provide kind of four types. And then this energy efficiency and renovation is the main one. So possibly, yeah, we're thinking about what to do with this renewable use. This isn't like that easy to do in Riga, so this is the reason why we don't have that many consultations. So yeah, something to think about on our side anyway. Now this is something I'm quite happy about. We do have this customer satisfaction form that we send out afterwards, which is also a good way to, if any information must be shared, or if there's any events that might be happening soon, also a good way to get people to read something, since they do feel a bit of an obligation. I feel like they've gotten this free consultation to actually look at the email. Anyhow, a part of it is this simple feedback form, and there we consistently score very well. So I'm really proud of that. But still, I think the main question you could think about is, what's the benefit of these consultations? Do they actually renovate their buildings? And here I've put this slide, which is actually a year old, since we do have not quite, perhaps not quite a year, but anyhow, quite old, since we do have a problem with figuring this out, because yeah, the workload is large, and really the way to know is to call people and to ask, and this does take quite a lot of time. But so really we've been doing more so samples of these consultees of the past, and from there, yeah, from a sample of 28, for example, 7 were still moving on with the process. So this is something that we must do more, I would say, and perhaps also I would recommend people to think about how to implement these client management systems that would help in facilitating really this data acquisition process in the future, and keep tabs, as it were, on the buildings and their progress. Since yeah, now we have a harder task in front of us to retroactively kind of figure out if something has been done in this interconsultation or intercommunication period with the house. Something that has been updated is that we have got 54 applications for our technical documentation support scheme, which is quite nice. So hopefully these buildings also have a higher percentage of moving on with the actual renovation works. I touched upon this a bit before, but really data analysis really is important. Hopefully you figure out how to automate it more, but I would say I would recommend people you to look into client management systems. Scaling up and work with a singular D, but anyhow, very important. We do notice that, yeah, with these informative campaigns and so on, suddenly we have a lot of consultations. As I said, it varies month to month. So we see that we could get more clients, but the problem is that we're bottlenecked at the moment. For example, with this informative campaign that we've got in October and November, we got too many consultations to handle, or rather, or too many consultations for the scheduling system to handle, since it's really made as a pretty much for one consultant kind of, and so people wanted to sign up, but then they, since the running month, let's say, or the current month was full with consultations every day, they probably had this inhibition to click right next month and so on. Like, who wants to wait for a consultation, like a month for a consultation? So there, the scaling up is important, both from the digital side and also, of course, from the team's side. But really, we're working on both of these. So yeah, I have high hopes. Outreach to those who need it the most, and this is in relation to energy poverty, since this data can be quite sensitive. And anyhow, there's oftentimes lack of data, like you see a house, and you would like to start talking with its owners, and this is quite difficult still. So we do make our own database, which is, I would say, our main source of contacts. Work after hours, unfortunately, this is quite common for these house owners meetings, which usually take place after hours, right, when the inhabitants can meet. So something, must be thought there. For us, the solution is still probably not perfect, but probably if the one-stop shop depends on the structure of it. For us as a municipal agency, it's a bit difficult to, let's say, pay this bonus or so on. Something must be thought there. Off-the-shelf digital tools in Latvia, and now we're exploring these. For example, this calendar tool is Calendly, which is in English, which is also not the best, since we then still we notice a problem that we do get these digitally literate people still. I mean, and it's a problem in the sense that we don't reach those who aren't. And then, of course, this lack of the euro or legal limitations is, of course, a problem. But still, I would say that one-stop shop, and this is also something that I would like to stress, I would say that one-stop shop personnel really is in a really great spot to influence policy, since if you meet with tens of people, or possibly hundreds of people as a conglomerate, let's say, of the one-stop shop as a whole, rather, then you do get a lot of insider info of the problems that these consumers face, right? I would say that for lawmakers, oftentimes there is this disconnect, but then we as one-stop shop personnel talk with people every day, and we notice these patterns of what these problems are. So really, I would like to say that the one-stop shop personnel should not be underestimated. There's also this policy influencer. And then, so I said a bit of info on the campaign of October, so it was really quite wide. So both outdoor ads and in public transportation and on the radio and on social media and so on. Pardon. But really, I think my main takeaway is that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Really, like Facebook works, and we notice that. And this is not even the whole info, but really we notice from these consultations that mostly people say that they applied from the internet, and really this is so Facebook or Instagram, and for us, at least at the moment, this is plenty, and we don't have to, and this is the most cost-effective, it would seem. So really, I would say that unless you've reached saturation already, there is really no reason to not go for this low-hanging fruit. Like, of course, it's nice to have these ads outside and so on. And in some ways, of course, it does help, and we do get consultations from these sources also. But especially since we're trying to do it at scale and so digitally, then of course it also makes sense if the service is digital to also have these ads digitally. And of course, you don't reach these digitally illiterate people, let's say. But again, since we haven't reached saturation with this low-hanging fruit, or these easy to reach clients, I would say that this is not a problem still. And then for plans for the future, touch briefly upon them. So the Elena has been approved for Riga. Quite a lot of money, which we're happy about, and I think this is also a proof that we've been doing good work. Also very proud about this. Most of this money will be used for staff and then for technical documentation, 150 packages of technical documentation, hopefully, and which should lead to these 50 renovated buildings. So hopefully it all works out. And again, these 4 additional staff members, they will have to be trained and so on. So this is also, of course, a challenge for us, because we do want to keep this quality of service exceptionally high. As you saw, currently people do rate us fairly well, and I would hope to keep it that way. Anyhow, thank you. I am quite open to questions and comments.